I can suture people. I can like sew up things so that maybe you don't see their penis anymore. I like pull the balls around it.
And sew it.
Mm-hmm. It's just surgical, like when you're getting a stitch.
I'm Sahar, a journalist on a quest to understand the world through the lens of how people do sex. Today, I'm meeting Eva O, a professional dominatrix who charges up to $10,000 a day to humiliate and punish people for hours on end in dungeons around the world. But there is another side to her too. Before entering the world of domination, Eva worked for United Nations, including time spent in Afghanistan, where she worked on projects supporting refugees. These days, though, she's on a mission to demystify kink and domination, showing that it's not just about pain and control, but also about mutual vulnerability, consent, and emotional connection, even while holding a whip.
Eva, welcome to Doing Sex.
Ooh.
I know. This podcast is about how people do sex and what it says about the world around them, their culture, their history, politics, everything.
Okay. And I'm a part of it, apparently.
You are, and we're going to find out how you do sex says about you.
All right. That's a casual afternoon.
Yes. When I was stalking you, naturally, I came across your website and it was quite, aligned with what I expected your website would be, saucy pictures of you looking fine in latex with, your slaves, links to your OnlyFans, links to your services. And then they were also links to you selling tea, oolong tea, jasmine tea. I mean, that's the one thing I did not expect. What's that all about?
I discovered tea ceremony a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago. And I kind of fell in love with it because it's what I needed at the time. I was meditating quite heavily and I had disassociated from the tactile world.
Hang on, what is a tea ceremony?
So a Chinese tea ceremony, it's you're kind of brewing the tea and then pouring it for multiple rounds and different accoutrements that you're navigating. So it's a physical, artistic experience as well as a visceral one.
And how did that help you when you were disassociating with the reality? With the tactile world, you said?
Yeah, with the tactile world. So I was doing Vipassana meditation and I did it maybe a bit too heavily. And I kind of really reformatted myself, which has ended up being a good thing.
And the tea ceremonies brought you back to this equilibrium.
It brought me back into appreciating physicality, physical objects, and that it can relate back to your senses. And it brought me back into my senses and an appreciation of it.
So what's the link between that and dominatrix?
So I was pouring tea for a lot of my friends at the time, who were a lot of doms, and they started to say that it was quite a nice process to be a part of.
Is there a more direct link between tea, drinking tea, these type tea ceremonies, and kink and your role as a dominatrix?
I think that there's probably some parallels in that there's a lot of ritual that's possible in session also. And I think maybe people who are attracted to the intricacy of an object, and because there's a lot of gear that can be quite involved in sessions also, and noticing the smaller moments and the smaller potential.
Do you ever offer your clients tea after the session or during the session?
Yes.
You do?
Before, during, after.
We are currently trying out this new thing where I want to get to know my contributors, these wonderful people I'm speaking to. So I want to ask you a few questions. The rule is just don't think too much. Give me the first answer that comes to your mind. Carrot or cucumber?
Carrot.
Early mornings or late evenings?
Oh, it depends on the jet lag. Currently, early mornings.
Missionary or doggy style?
Doggy has more possibility.
What does a typical Sunday look like for you?
Like a typical any other day. I have a lot of freedom. I can wake up when I want, take as much time as I want.
Voice note or text?
I want to receive a text, but I want to give a voice note.
I see. Like that, are we? What's the biggest lie you've ever said to yourself?
That a relationship was worth it.
Deep. Front or back?
Front.
More or less?
More.
What's your guilty pleasure?
Guilty. I don't know if I feel guilt about pleasure.
You said that you regret your relationship with your biological father. Can I ask you what happened there?
Yeah, so I don't actually experience regret at all. But the only time that I felt it was when he died. As soon as I found out that he died, I thought maybe there could have been more closeness and proximity, but actually I did make the better decision. But if there was any regret, that's the one time that I've sort of experienced it. My biological dad left before I was even 1, so there wasn't a lot of awareness of him. But he would come dip in and out every now and then. And I made different choices over the years whether to allow that or not. And eventually I thought, this is just not a good idea. I'm just not going to engage with that or allow that anymore.
Has your dad, his absence perhaps, played a part in what you do now as a dominatrix?
I think probably maybe the most obvious links that I find are, I think my family have been quite matriarchal, actually. I think that's probably maybe the most obvious family link.
What is the dominatrix?
Dominatrix, as I've come to understand it, is somebody who provides a service where we engage in the fetish desires of the client and create a scenario that will satisfy them.
So you are very successful in this industry. What do you think makes you so good at this?
I think I have less ego than other people do on average. I think I can create space and see people. And I think that when you can do that, you can move them and then they become addicted to that.
That sounds quite counterintuitive though, because you'd expect a dom, as you called it,
To impose.
to be very egotistical.
There's a way to do it where you're just pushing an identity or a voice on somebody.
I see. So what I'm hearing is that it's more about actually acting like you're dominating.
Yeah, the concept of who's in charge is very blurred, actually. Because I think being able to be in my position, you have to have an overview. And you have to have the confidence in order to take the steps that present themselves. But you're given those steps by the person who's in front of you. You know, it's an exchange. It's a constant exchange. And I think that maybe on the surface, it looks like there's somebody commanding, but without my response to the person who's supposed to be following me, they're not going to keep following me. So it's just a cycle.
I don't know much about this scene, and I've genuinely come with an open book. And I tend to be quite assertive and dominant in most aspects of my life. I mean, I've traveled around the world. I've interviewed some of the most powerful people. I've interviewed the Taliban. I've interviewed the head of Interpol. And I'm quite in charge. But when it comes to sex, I'm quite frigid. And I have this perception about people like you doing what you do. And I'm like, oh. And then to hear that you're kind of shattering that kind of illusion.
What was the illusion?
I don't know. One, I wasn't sure what to expect when I met you. I thought you might be really scary and mean. You're so lovely. The second is that, you have to get rid of your ego, which is, in my mind, was the other way around.
Yeah, I think I have an issue in that I really don't have much of it.
Why is that an issue?
Because it means that sometimes you don't make enough judgment. It has shifted me in the past to being a little bit too open to manipulation. It was a relationship I had here probably. I didn't let it go on for too long, about a year. He taught me to trust him and then to question who I was and my choices. Yeah. And that I was making bad decisions and that I was an idiot, basically.
We've all been around, men and women in relationships that we thought were going a certain way, and then we wake up one day and we look in the mirror and you're like, who the hell am I and what did I do?
Only until recently was it easier for me to understand maybe larger political structures and how they maybe could work in a more positive light versus not, because it was like almost my mind was so open to different opinion that it was harder for me to place my opinion. You know, it's like the lack of ego makes you non-judgmental, but you need some education and some judgment around engaging with our existence. I think my most prime example is still the gaslighting thing, because that one did affect me quite personally.
How did it affect you?
I believed them to the point of whittling myself down and even getting rid of all of my work things. And I didn't work for a year, and I actually went back and did a social work thing, thinking that I was going to move away from my work.
You said to be good at this, you have to put your ego aside. So how do you continue being good while also creating those boundaries?
I think it's a lot of practice. I think it's seeing a lot of people who have tried to take advantage of situations around me and just recognizing the signs, being like, that client needs to go, or that client needs to hear this sentence from me. I think it's just a matter of experience now.
What is that sentence?
Sometimes it's almost just not addressing what they were trying to get at. Just like pretending that I didn't really understand what they were saying, and like acknowledging it in a way, but not addressing it, so that it loses power.
Do you recommend being a dominatrix?
I would say that you could have some fun with it. I think anybody should try it for a little moment in time. I think it's fun for us to try roles, even just for an hour or two. I think it can inform us. It taught me that I could be assertive and be welcomed for it, whereas it was something I needed to hide before. Even before I started working as a dominatrix, I had like a couple of companies on my own. I had worked for many different people, done creative things also, and I was always having to let the men think that things were their idea. Otherwise, my ideas might not get pushed, or they might try to jeopardize them, or however. And so I learned that the only way to sort of assert myself was to make men believe that it was their idea. And I did it, but...
Isn't that kind of what you're doing now, though?
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes if I want to achieve something bigger, I do plant something. But for the most part, I can say what I want fairly directly. I got that from doing this repeatedly, by saying something and somebody reacting to it with adoration over and over again, and then getting paid for it. So it was kind of very validating that I could be like this, and there was space for that. It's just understanding that whatever comes your way, I know how to navigate it and push it and, yeah, move things, basically. Whereas before, I might feel like things would move me.
Has it changed your life for better?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, not only the financial aspect, which is quite surprising still, but yeah, it just gives you the skills to live a more free life, at least for me.
So this is a podcast about sex.
Yeah.
I want to understand how sessions work. You know, there are articles written about it.
Mm-hmm.
God knows I've been and seen so many porn trips on it. But I actually want you to run me through what a typical session is like. So tell me first, how do they normally start?
With their view of me on the internet and what that plants in their mind. People apply. I tell them how much I charge. A lot of people can't pay that. It's a lot of hoops to jump through to get in the door.
How much do you charge?
I charge £800 to £1,500 an hour for an hour of my time.
And you charge per hour?
Per hour.
Mm-hmm. And how did you set this?
So I started off in the house at around, it was priced by content. And then when I left the house, the dungeon, I decided to do by the hour so I wouldn't have to negotiate every time. And so I went with my escort rate. And then I started getting completely booked out. And I realized I needed to raise the rate. And it was already so high. It was 700 Australian dollars. And I didn't know how to do it, but I just tried. And I tried 1,000 and I would still get completely booked out. And then I did 1,400 and I'd still get completely booked out. I thought, okay, the sky's the limit. Yeah. And so now I kind of price it in a place because my OnlyFans does quite well. I don't really need to session so much. It's more about maintaining those relationships and maybe thinking about building new ones. So what's the number that I feel like I'm comfortable with?
What sort of things do you look for when you're actually casting clients? I didn't even realize you would cast clients. Another thing that I'm like, what?
Yeah, some people ask for recommendations from other DOMs. Some people check databases. We have databases on clients also.
So you collaborate with each other.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Is it to protect yourself?
It's usually to protect ourselves, but then there are some lists where we talk about what they're like. But for me, I look for somebody who is clear. Basically, they don't need to be crazy articulate, but just be able to explain a bit about where they're coming from, but not be too selfish with that explanation. Like a nice size, but not too short, not too much. And an understanding of who they're approaching. Yeah.
And like, who would you say your current client base tend to be? Who are they? Like, what's their profile?
It's still a lot of men, like cis men. It's actually, I was quite heavy on the corporation type person for a little while, but now it's actually a little bit more mixed. You have some entrepreneurial types in there, which I used to hate.
Why?
Because they're more ballsy with their negotiation. Fair enough. That's how they got where they are. But I didn't really have the patience for that when I was working more. Now I think I have more time. I give them a little bit more room to try. Yeah.
How many regulars would you say you have at the moment?
Because I have them everywhere in the world, it's hard for me to keep track, but I put them all on my Telegrams. I would say there's about 20 of them that I can call on. Yeah.
And like you let them know when you're around and then they will kick it in.
Yeah.
And like how long would you say your longest relationship with one of these clients is? Do you
Well,
call them clients? Is it slave? Is
I
that what you
call them clients. If I'm introducing them when they're with me, I'll say slave or sub. Yeah. And the one that's been with me and I still see every month is maybe 5 years, but I have some that I've known for 15 years. Yeah, but they can't afford me anymore. So I just use them when I'm back in Sydney, basically, to pick up stuff or whatever.
And how deep does this relationship go? Is it just you know them as your slave and you have this dynamic, or do you actually know them? Do you feel for them?
I really know them. I really, really know them. I mean, it depends on the DOM, how they want to approach things, but when you spend that much time with someone, you run out of things to talk about on a surface level. And so you start to really understand a lot about them. And if they're watchful enough, they understand a lot about you also.
But do you actually talk in these sessions though?
So you end up spending days with them sometimes. They'll book for days. And you'll be eating with them. You'll be like in a spa with them, shopping, whatever. You know, it's like a normal sort of engagement.
So like you go, I mean, we're going to talk about what it actually goes, but like you basically go, you hit them, you use them, you abuse them, and then you go and have a nice dinner.
Well, we don't use the word abuse when it's consensual.
Okay. I apologize. It was more of a phrase.
Yeah. So
what would you use? What is the correct terminology?
Well, it would depend on what they're interested in. Sometimes it would be humiliation. Sometimes it would be impact. Sometimes it would be punishment. It depends.
Okay, so you punish them, you humiliate them, you hit them, and then you go and have a nice dinner, and then you come back and...
Yeah, it depends on how I want to pace everything and who they are. And sometimes I might only have one little like hour and a half of play in the whole weekend, and it'll just be the dynamics throughout. Sometimes it'll be like a 12-hour overnight session in a prison.
Like run me through something quite mundane. Like you've done humiliation, punishment, impact, and then you go for a nice meal in a nice restaurant. Like how does this relationship between you two work throughout this time?
Yeah, if it's someone I've known for a while, I'll probably just ask about their kids. Whether they've been doing certain things that I've told them to do about the kids. Yeah.
Like a friend.
Yeah, more directive friend, but yeah. Or like tactics in their work or whatever. Yeah.
Do you ever like order them with things in their lives?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they listen. Like if you tell them, like
some of them
quit your job.
Yeah, they would listen.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. They trust me enough. And I'm not going to say that lightly either. I'm like an advisor almost. Yeah. And I think that that's built over time. And I also am not going to step into that role just so freely because that takes energy for me to understand too. And I'm not going to tell somebody flippantly that they should do a huge life decision. I'll say it if I think that it's going to benefit them and therefore me.
And like when you're having dinner, like do you choose for them or do you have to give them permission to pick theirs?
I usually order everything.
Yeah. Do you have to be like, you may speak?
Except wine. Some of them are really good at wine, so I tell them to do that.
I see. Yeah. And like, if a waiter or if the people sitting around, would they know that there is this dynamic or is it more like kind of hidden?
I feel like they know what's going on, but they probably just think it's not a dom, but that's the dynamic. I think that they've seen it.
Yeah. More for like a toxic relationship.
Maybe. Or just, I think there's a lot of Asian women that can be quite brash. There's often a lot more matriarchal structures going on in Asia than people are aware of.
All right. So going back to what I asked.
Yeah.
What does a typical session look like? So they start by
applying
online. And then what happens?
And if they've made it through all the hoops, they come to this space at a certain time and day. And the first thing that you need to collect is the money.
You take the whole money up front.
Everything up front, yes. So we'll talk about where they've kind of come from in their experience, what they're hoping to achieve, like in that time together, and why they were interested in me. I'm trying to bring them into the headspace of serving me. And then I might give them a title for the day so that they can start to shift their headspace. Also,
what title? Like
I always use plaything. Yeah. And then I'll give them a safe word. I'll explain how that sort of works. Mine to stop is mercy. Mm-hmm. And to slow it down is yellow. So some people have a traffic light system like red, yellow, green. Have people set green or red? Oh, yes.
And do you just completely stop and bring them? Like what
red
do you do
is
when
complete stop. Get them out of whatever it is that they're within. Maybe it's a bondage situation. And bring them up to sitting maybe with me, or maybe they needed to be hugged, or maybe they needed a real shift or something. And I'll figure out what that shift needs to be.
You actually give them a hug?
Yeah, some of them really need it. Yeah, it's a very emotional space, can be. Yeah, a very vulnerable space. I think the dynamic is the biggest thing, but they don't necessarily mention that when they're already approaching a female dominant or like a dominatrix, because like inherent. So that's probably the number one. And then I would say there's a tier of feet and anal play, prostates, bondage, tease, denial, chastity. Those are maybe like the highlights.
Is there ever something they ask that you perhaps is a bit too much for you or you don't want to do?
There's some medical things that I don't know how to do on my own safely that I wouldn't do.
Like what? That makes me nervous, even hearing that in this context, medical things. What does that even mean?
Yeah, so I mean, I can suture people. I can like sew up things so that maybe you don't see their penis anymore,
Sew up their skin?
Yeah, like pull the balls around it.
And sew it?
Mm-hmm. It's just surgical, like
what?
when you're getting a stitch.
You do that?
I can do that. That's fine. But then you can get things like, I've been interested to do a biopsy on somebody, like just a skin one.
And people ask you for that?
No, that's something I'm curious in. Yeah. And there are some people, which is quite dangerous, like who play with anesthetics and stuff like that I probably wouldn't feel comfortable doing.
Like, what do you mean?
Like twilight anesthesia.
I don't know what that is.
So it's not general in that you're completely out, but it's twilight so that you're unable to move. Oh. Yeah. Some people play with that. I probably wouldn't do that. Yeah. There's a lot of risk that I'm very unaware of.
I see.
So it's things that I don't have capacity for, I think, rather than things that I'm turned off by.
Yeah. Does it always like kind of lead to penetrative sex or
pretty much never?
Really?
Yeah, it's something I have added on actually recently. But
if they ask?
No, like in the last 14 years, I've never offered it with my dominatrix services. But in the last year, I thought, why not? Just double the price and offer it. And yeah, so now it's something that it's an add-on, but for the job in a common way internationally, it's not known to be a part of the job.
Interesting. So it's very psychological rather than...
Yeah, I mean, it's kinks, and that is sexual, but and it's still very physical, a lot of these kinks, but it's not like penetration is not the focus. Yeah.
Do you ever like get off on any of these? Let me elaborate slightly. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm very visual, right? Like I actually prefer masturbation to full sex just because I can create these weird scenarios in my head and they can change. And for me, so I totally understand the psychology of it, and I wonder, like, do you actually like get turned on, or do you even like orgasm when you're actually doing these things?
Orgasm, I would probably need specific stimulation for that, but I'm very suited to the job. But in terms of getting turned on, I'm really lucky in that I am the kind of person that gets turned on every time.
Every time?
Every time, because of how I am.
Do you have like a very high sex drive?
It's an interesting relationship. I think what I'm getting turned on is the possibilities that I have within me. Like sometimes I'm just amazed at what I can say to these people and the desire that I can conjure up in them. And I think it's that process that I'm turned on by, which is great for the job, obviously. And so that's why it's such a consistent engagement for me. But high sex drive, what is high and what is low, though? It's like, I think that once you understand how you can access that pleasure, I don't know why anybody would not engage with it. I feel like low sex drive might be people who have not yet understood how to navigate pleasure, perhaps, for themselves. So I actually went a year with no masturbation, no sex. It was like a weird yogic challenge that I had for myself. And now I can really control that. Like getting turned on is really like, if that's the high for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So take me through these sessions. Like what happens during these sessions?
So after that negotiation, I guess, and now we're starting to run through that improvisational theater, like private theater, right? And so I have their list in my head in terms of what they are interested in. And I know that I can use these things against them, basically. But for me, I'm interested in drawing out their desire for the situation and their like focus in that situation. And I'll just do anything to get it, basically. And I'll watch how they are. I'll say things. I'll pick out little things about them. I'll use my body. I'll use my touch just to make sure they're really engaged. When you're putting your hand on somebody and you're seeing how they sort of respond to you, and then you're asking them a question and you're starting to dig your nails into them, and like to the point of maybe it like kind of hurts, but then you can see that it hurts too much and you let go a little bit. And it's just brought them really close into you. And then maybe you start to just like run your fingers across their crotch or something like that. So it kind of confuses that they're turned on that. Yeah. And so it's just like hypnotizing them basically into a seduction, I think is my approach. And then I'm constantly kind of feeding back off of how they're responding to my touch, my words, and I'm changing everything according to where they're going. And then I'm throwing in the things that they're interested in order to keep engaging them basically until they're like just way too turned on. And then maybe they can't come because I say so, or maybe I do allow them that, or yeah.
How much of it is verbal and how much of it is physical?
It's maybe 50-50.
And what sort of equipment or tools do you use?
I mean, you don't really need anything but your mind and your capacity. I think that when you have the understanding of the psychology and somebody has the interest in submission, you really don't need anything more than that. But some people have specific fetishes, and that might be heavy bondage. And so you can have leather belts and things like this. You can do things as simple as cuffs and rope, all the way up to, chastity cages that have urethral salves that go inside and block the urethra so that they can't come into normal function and things like this. It's just like, it's endless. All the little gear things. It's a gearhead's dream, BDSM.
Yeah. How do you make sure you're safe? Like if somebody comes into this apartment, it's just you and them.
Mm-hmm.
And, what do you do if they suddenly attacked you? Has that happened?
No, that's never happened. I've never been attacked. I've always known who people are before they come into my play space. And I think my reputation also protects me in some way. Like people are kind of intimidated, whether rightfully so or whatever. And people know when I'm sessioning, like who I'm sessioning with sometimes, and location tracking and things like this.
Who is people? Like you have people that you...
I have a network. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I was thinking about questions I want to ask you, one thing that kind of made me giggle to myself was like, how do these sessions end? And the reason this, I guess, made me kind of... I struggled with even like framing this question is because I always struggle with the end of sex. Like even with a long-term partner, usually I just turn around and like, okay, cuddle me, stroke me. I don't know why. I feel weird. I feel shame. You know, I'm guilty of, I'm not proud to say, having snuck out in the middle of the night. I just get so awkward. What happens when these sessions end? Like, how do you know these sessions have ended? And how do you end them? How do you wrap things up?
I also have this similar sensation after orgasm, actually. I think it's actually like a...
like me.
Yeah, I think it's very common for everyone. It's just what you associate with that, with psychologically. I think it's like an oxytocin and like dopamine drop. Serotonin, like it's a big drop, you know? And so you are quite exposed and vulnerable. And so I think it's what you associate with that what you end up feeling, you know, or interpreting it as. But so there's a huge shift for us. But in terms of the session, orgasm isn't always involved. It's me keeping to the clock in a way. And so understanding that they're going to need some time to sort of come out of that. And so usually like maybe 15 minutes before things need to end, I'll start to change my tone or voice. I might like let a little bit more light into the room, just like try to bring them out of a headspace, basically, because just throwing them out onto the street isn't going to benefit anybody. Making that landing a little easier. But basically, I'm always thinking about how do I send them off in the best possible way that I can with the time constraints that we have.
How do you send them off? How does a typical session end for you?
Yeah, if somebody hasn't had like a mental breakdown and is in tears on my floor, which does happen. And it's just been like maybe they've come, maybe they haven't, but like they've had a nice time. It'll be me doing all those changes with my voice and light and things like this. And then getting them to maybe shower if we need to get everything off of them, or to just like bring them out of something and just like sit a little bit closer to me. Maybe I'll tell them to like hug my legs or something like this, and I'll just like pet them, and then I'll sort of start to close the session and just like, how was the time for you? It's like a debriefing sort of, right? Like bringing them back into being able to talk, being able to represent themselves in the world, maybe getting them water, flipping the dynamic by giving them something very tangible, you know. So it's just me coaching them back into reality, basically. Yeah, it's an aftercare, you know, and some people need different things. Some people are happy to just get out. Yeah, so it really depends. But I'll always check in a couple of days later.
You do check in on
see
that?
Where people's heads are at, yeah.
Why?
Because the way that I play can be quite intense, and it can bring up a lot of things and create a lot of attachment and desire and truths. And so I know that about myself now, and I want to make sure people are okay.
And it also seems like you have a lot of power in these sessions over their bodies, over their psyche, over their hearts. It seems like, and you know, the old saying, with great power comes great responsibility. Do you think it's your responsibility to kind of look after their welfare once this is done? I've realized there's a limit to that. I really took it to heart, that concept of my responsibility, for many years. But I came to understand that they also are an active participant, and they need to feel a certain responsibility too. And so, you know, I'll do a check-in, but I'm not going to carry them psychologically. If I really feel like they need that, then I will suggest that they see somebody to talk it out or whatever. But yeah, so I do feel a responsibility, but I've carried it too much in the past, and now I know my limits. You said that a lot of people come here, and it happens often that they end up crying, they end up sobbing, that you have to check in on them, that you have to sometimes suggest that they see a psychologist. Are the people coming to you, perhaps people who are attracted to this scene or to being dominated, do you think they are kind of like I mean, we're all damaged, but would you say that like kind of damaged people who are trying to overcome trauma
I think
predominantly?
they're closer to their truth than other people. They're more ready to engage with their truths. I don't know whether I would call that damage. I'd call that probably better to being less damaged. But I've only suggested the psychological angle maybe 3 times over the course of my career, which has been a long time. So that's not so much. And usually it's prior to even seeing them, because I can already tell by their email that it's not going to work unless they have support. So they might mention maybe some trauma or some specific scenario, but the way that they describe it is just, they haven't understood it completely, and so they don't know how to describe it in a logical fashion, and it's just really erratic. I'm like, have you talked about this? I need you to clarify that before you can come into a play space with me.
Because that brings up the question, like, at one point, is this kink pleasure and driven by fantasy, and at one point, is it self-harm?
Yeah, I've wondered about this also, because I almost feel like I ask myself the question, are we perpetuating something that needs to end? Or are we reframing it? Or are we just having a good time? And I think that I think it's hard to say when it's something that people need to redefine for themselves. I think if they're going to have a specific scenario that they need to play out like every time, and they are not also seeking psychological help alongside that one very specific, almost scripted scene, which is very rare, but it does happen, then I think maybe you might get a bit stuck. Yeah, it's very rare though that happens, but it does happen. But I think that if it's just like an element and you're kind of having fun with it and you're repositioning it a little bit differently and it's a little bit more fluid each time, I think that that's probably a better approach to it.
But where is that line? At what point is kink is being dominated in the way that we've been speaking about? At what point is it a bit of fun, perhaps a bit of healing? And at what point does it actually become dangerous?
I think it's life in general. I think when you're not ready to be self-critical, you're probably in danger. So I don't know if it's just kink. Yeah, and I think that's about anything, not just about kink play. I think that's about your choices in relationships, your choices of jobs, friendships, however. Yeah, people who are not critically engaging with their lives, they're probably more at risk of being in trouble.
And I suspect, like many things that give you bits of endorphin, hits of pleasure, this can create a lot of addiction. What's been your sort of, I want to say experience, but perhaps your experiences of seeing that? Where'd you laugh?
Because I'm just remembering all of the people and all of their excitement and all of their ways of navigating it, including my own. Like when I first found female domination and understood that I could say things directly and do things and people welcomed them, I had a crazy rush for about a year and a half. And I would do things non-consensually. I'd date people and I'd slap them, like without having negotiated anything. I was on like a power high, I was like, the floodgates are open. But I tapered off eventually after the floodgates were opened. And I think it's a similar experience for many people who are sort of stepping into kink. It's like, wow, I didn't realize I could feel all of these things. And my world is different and I'm so open and this is amazing and I want to do it all the time. And they get kind of annoying about it. But everything can sort of taper off sort of in the end. But like I was saying, it's, I guess, the people who have very specific scenarios that they're trying to reframe but can't get out of, and they're not getting help alongside it. Maybe that's when. But again, that doesn't happen as much as the people who are just sort of flailing about, enjoying these new sensations like I was. Yeah.
Are your slaves only limited to the sessions that they book? Or do you actually, I know some doms have slaves for different things. Sometimes they have them to do that admin. Sometimes they just have people that do things for free for them, like an actual life slave. Do you have those?
I have had many different kinds of slaves over the years, but right now I'm enjoying having very few. But that said, I have people who I keep around for parties quite often, so like accessories almost, and people to serve me when I have people over. Yeah, like domestic sort of labors. And I have some lawyers who read my contracts and things like this.
All for free.
Oh, yes. I have lawyers. I have people who run venture capital funds who advise me on certain... Yeah, I have a lot of people who are happy to advise me on many things.
You said that a lot of your clients tend to be very wealthy, often cis men. What's their kind of ethnicity usually? Or is
It's
it
pretty mixed these days. I think it depends on where I am in the world. And London's a very international city. So it's pretty mixed. It's just whoever has access to wealth because of the amounts that I charge, basically. So it's often cis men.
And what sort of age groups?
Probably people more around their 50s mark, 60s, newly divorced especially, trying to finally live their passion.
At the moment, you're getting a lot of very powerful, wealthy men who you essentially, for a certain period of time, strip of their power. Why do you think they come to you for that?
I think a lot of these particular individuals, it's lived in them before they were powerful. But I think a lot of these men, the way that I've come to learn them, it's just been something that's always situated within them that they've had to set aside in order to exist as a man in our society. And therefore it's become so strong that they really seek somebody to help settle that.
So you don't think they come to you because after having a lot of power, they want it to be taken away? You think it's always been there?
I think that's a different kind of client. They are different kinds of clients. They're not my kind of clients. Yeah. I don't like those clients.
Why?
They're trying to do a release valve. And so it's a different attitude.
What do you mean release valve?
The people who are just like, I'm under so much pressure. I just want to be manhandled. Now it's it's a different charge. It's not as much, I'm going to make an application. I'm going to think about who this person is. I'm going to make sure that I'm presenting myself in the right way. I like that approach. I'm not really the, let's just get the money in the door kind of a person. Yeah, which is fine. But it doesn't make for an enjoyable exchange for me. I feel like I have to deliver something right now. And it's not really what I deliver, I guess.
What you essentially do, what you sell, is essentially a fetishization of female power.
Yes.
Why do you think being a dominant woman has become a fetish? It's such a popular fetish.
Yeah, I think that... Is it a popular fetish? It's something that people are very enamored by, it seems. I mean, that's why I'm sitting here, right? But I think it's... if I was just a dude who told people what to do wearing whatever it is that dudes would wear, it connotes power, a suit, I'd just be like any other thing because they're given space in the world. It's their world, A woman who asserts herself and who centers her pleasure is not something encouraged, and therefore it's given a smaller space. And the people who do recognize that value are just so hungry for it and end up creating a fetish out of it because it's something so not usually welcomed in the world. So I think it's a reaction to patriarchal structures, basically.
You strike me as a feminist, am I right?
Yeah.
How does it make you feel as a feminist that female power is so rare that it's become fetishized?
It makes me love how complex people can be. And I am quite intrigued with how complex that is as a concept and how society is built upon all of these potentially contrasting ideologies and how they meet. I think that the archetype of stepping into the role of a dominatrix has helped me a lot to understand where I situate power and how I can communicate my desire and my place in the world.
I heard you say in more than one occasion across your social media, your podcast, you spoke about redistribution of wealth and that you're doing that through taking a lot of money off very powerful
Men.
wealthy men. And it kind of I remember at the time it made me giggle because I was like picturing you, but then I was also picturing Robin Hood in a dominatrix kind of outfit.
That would be a great outfit.
Tell me about that. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, it's something that I've sort of started to understand because I didn't grow up with access to wealth in much of a way. And so this has been the job where I've come into contact with that, the most. And now that I'm charging what I do, you get access to people who can afford that. And my friend group couldn't afford this in a million years, the people that I choose to usually have close to me. And I think if my family knew my rate, they'd be like, what? Yeah. So it's just a different sort of sector of like people. And it starts to get you thinking about why do these people have that kind of wealth? And you start to think about concepts of wealth distribution and then about the flow of money and about how in sex work, that's probably that women is out-earn men. And that's the only industry where that happens. And so and if you're thinking about fairness in general, then you start to get exposed to concepts like universal basic income and the redistribution of wealth. And so, I mean, you giggle, but it's true. When in a million years could like a Southeast Asian girl like be able to move in the circles of billionaires?
When you think about like uber rich people, celebrities, they're kind of like aliens, and like you see them naked, you see them that vulnerable. What are these uber rich, uber successful, inaccessible people are like behind these closed doors when their clothes come off? Are they different?
I think they're mostly similar, but every now and then they'll say something completely ignorant. The one thing that really sticks in my mind is somebody who used to run projects around the world, manufacturing sort of, and he would travel for like a day or two to these different places. And after like I think this is like 3 months into our engagement, he had just come from India or something. And he said, I think they were really great. They would show me around. Everybody was so happy. I think that, when you have less money, you're just happier. And so I addressed it and it's improved. Yeah. It's a person who's been with me for 5 years now.
So finally, Eva O,
Yes.
how do you do sex for you?
I think I've built my career on it, basically. I think it's all for me. Yeah, especially at this point when I don't have to accept anybody who doesn't give me a good application anymore. I think that I do sex for me in that I tap into the vulnerabilities of others and I mold them into a bubbling desire for the both of us. I think that's my best moment for me.
And what does that say about you as a person?
I think that I'm very curious about connection and being wanted to be within a connection from others.
What can I, as a normal person who is kind of like navigating my way around sex, I'm genuinely trying to understand why I have such a weird relationship with it.
What is a weird relationship?
I come from a very sexually suppressed background.
Yeah.
Multiple, very unhealthy, some toxic, some outright abusive sexual relationships. And now I'm in a very long-term loving relationship. It's always been weird. Sex has always been a thing that I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
What can I learn from kink, from BDSM, from you?
I think kink and BDSM have taught me that there's no one way to access that pleasure and that sense of sexuality for yourself. You've already talked about how you are driven by the visual and that you find more pleasure in like self-pleasure. I mean, that is sexuality. You don't have to do it with anybody. You're experiencing your sexuality. Maybe that's where you currently are best situated, and that's great. You know what gets you off. You're doing fine.
So just accepting.
Yeah, I think so. And like exploring maybe that in more depth, perhaps, like more solo pleasure stuff. Maybe buy more little toys, maybe go to the far reaches of the internet and see what else you can find. Yeah, like enjoy yourself. It's still sexuality. It's yours. It's not something you have to share with anybody. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. That was fun.
This was so much fun. Thank you for joining us today. If you like this program, please rate and review the podcast wherever you get your shows. And maybe share it with someone who might want to or need to hear it. This has been Doing Sex, a Vespucci production produced by Hattie Moyer and presented by me, Sahar.